Welcome one and all to Creative Spark, my interview series where I talk to cool people about the cool things that they do. And this week I have the man with the lowest voice in gaming, Jon Cartwright.
Hello.
There you
See
go,
how
nailed
low
it.
it can go.
That's literally just your normal voice. There was no difference between the two.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. Apart from not
Good.
having his lower voice, I have this ridiculous, like, perpetually 18 voice, which is preposterous. But here we are. Um, yeah, so I want to talk about your career, really, like how you got into video games, and you're one of those people that sort of successfully straddles the line, I think, between content creator and video game journalist, which I think is tricky to do. Which makes for an interesting case, I think. So
Yeah. I
let's
guess I've worn a few hats. I've been on the core journalism side. I've been on I guess the influencer side, and they've all sort of merged together. Yeah, I've kind of experienced most of the paths, I guess.
it's the way to do it. So where did you start? When did you start, and why did you start?
So I started as just a hobby when I was an early teenager. So I would review just random legacy games, and no one would watch. It would just be me talking into a void of an audience consisting of around like five people every time. But I enjoyed doing it, and I just kind of kept that up for a while, just sort of reviewing old Zelda games, old Mario games, and it got to the point where, for some reason, Nintendo UK took notice of it, and they started sending me review copies of some of the early 3DS games.
Mm.
So I got stuff like Mario 3D Land and Bravely Default. So I don't know why they did that, but it kind of kick-started me off on more of a core journalism path after that. And eventually, I would get to the point where with when the Switch came out, which is far after the 3DS era, they gave me Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and there was this journalism Discord because obviously with that game you couldn't play online with randoms because there
Mm.
were no randoms. It was pre-release. So all of the content creators and reviewers sort of got together in a Discord and just set up a giant call to play a bunch of online games. And in that call were people like Alex from Nintendo Life and Andre Segers from Game Explain. And when I played with him, I don't know why he took notice in me, but he did, and he invited me onto a discussion for their channel. So I was going from an audience of like 1,000 people to an audience like 1 million people, and I sort of kept getting invited again and again after that, until eventually I sort of became a permanent member, and then just kind of went on from there. So it was a hobby thing, and then it sort of I fell into a larger audience by accident, I suppose.
It's a good way of doing it. How
Yeah.
how was the transition between like doing it for the five core viewers? Shout out to the five viewers as well. You
Oh
are the
yeah.
people that help YouTubers actually make a thing of themselves. Um, yeah, how was it going from that to this like absolutely massive audience?
It was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. I read most comments if I get a chance to. Like sometimes a video is just like you want to go near that one, but with the five viewers, it was very easy to read every comment. And when my first video went live on Game Explain, I remember feeling so nervous because usually it's like when you have an audience of like five people, it's as if you are just in a group of friends.
Hmm.
But when you have an audience of millions, suddenly it's like you're on a stage in front of a huge crowd, and I kind of felt stage fright, even though it was kind of anonymous. So yeah, there are these people sort of asking if my voice was real, critiquing the way I speak, or all these other things. Like why is he talk? Why is he putting that voice on? That's one I got a lot. But also as a British guy to an audience of mostly American
Hmm.
people who are used to American people, so there was that big adjustment there. But I think I just appeared enough to the point where it became normal to that audience, and it became normal to me after a while. Like when I upload something now, it doesn't phase me that you know thousands of people are about to watch that. It's
Hmm.
just like my video's done. Time to move on to the next one.
It's just work.
Yeah.
Um, how was the period of time at Game Explain? Like how was working there? How was the work? How I'm going to edit that gigantic stutter
Sure.
out. I'm just going to start again. My brain's completely ADHD'd out on me. Um, how was your time at Game Explain, and how did you find managing the new workload and it suddenly becoming a full time job effectively?
Yeah, it was a difficult adjustment. At the time, I was still relatively young. I think I was maybe 21 when I
Mm,
joined Game Explain, and I was balancing university with that on the side. So there was a big workload of trying to keep up with my studies, probably not as well as I could have, while also reviewing games, covering news, and adjusting to the time zone difference too, because they were obviously on like Pacific time and Eastern
mm,
time in America, whereas me working from the UK, I was up quite late and working quite late. I know that there's been stories about my time at Game Explain. It's not all positive. They definitely pushed me too far, and I definitely did more than I should have. And I think I was for my age, I was probably quite naive to it all too. I
mm,
think if that happened today, I would not have gone through the same experiences I
mm,
did then. But the team I made there were excellent. Like Derek and Ash and Steve, they were tremendous to meet there, and they've gone on to found Good Vibes Gaming, which is where we are now. So I don't regret any time there, and I definitely learned a lot.
mm,
But it was definitely a struggle to manage everything, especially going from someone who was doing it as a hobby to suddenly it being a huge
mm.
full time job while also studying. So it was a lot. Yeah.
Well, and with the audience as well, because I think there's plenty of us in games journalism where we sort of started as a hobby and
Mm.
accidentally ended up with it as a career. I don't think that's that uncommon, which
It's
isn't
pretty
great.
common, yeah.
um, but to have a massive audience that actually knows you as well is a very different take on things. Um, when Game Explain did close,
Mm.
how did the conversations around Good Vibes Gaming start? Like, how much planning time was there before it launched?
Yeah, it was actually planned for a while. The whole team was feeling a bit off about the workload and the expectations. So for a while, we were kind of planning like an exit strategy.
Right.
Like, if it came to the point, could we just make our own channel and do our own thing? So that was always being planned. But then I got the offer to go to Nintendo Life, which was a really good offer. The team there is fantastic, and they were offering me like a regular 9 till 5. And as
Mm,
someone who was juggling a lot of hours that were not 9 till 5,
yeah.
it was very nice to have that allure there. So I took that while the rest of the team kept thinking about that exit strategy, and eventually they went through with it. And I had a channel already on the side that was somewhat established. In fact, this was the one that I used for my hobby stuff originally.
Mm,
So it was monetized already. It was just kind of a nice, easy start. So I gave them that while I went to Nintendo Life. But yeah, it was always sort of planned. So it was very nice that we could finally fulfill that. It's always a struggle to go from a channel that has like 4 million subscribers to
mm,
a channel that has, I think it was like 30,000 at the time. It was a big drop, but the audience, they aren't there for the brand name really. They're there for the
mm.
people. So it was enlightening to see people follow us there, and some people are still discovering. Like, I recognize that voice. Aren't you from Nintendo Life? Aren't you from Game Explain?
Yeah.
It's cool for them to know us all these years later on.
How was your time at Nintendo Life? And what was it like kind of deciding to give that up in favor of this new thing?
Yeah, Nintendo Life was fantastic. It was both the video side and also the writing side. I didn't write as much. My job title was video editor.
Hmm.
So yeah, the video team was great. Back then it was me, Alex, and Xeon. They now have Felix there, who's also great. But it was just such a great dynamic, though. It was nice working with Alex because he's in the UK, so there's
Hmm.
always a colleague nearby. We're in the Slack with everybody else, so we got to collaborate with the writing team, and a lot of the time we'd be like adapting their reviews, so we'd be
Hmm.
seeing it before it goes live and talking to the writer. So there was a very different atmosphere there, and it's just a lot more friendly, and things just felt more organized and flowed really well there. And if I didn't get the offer to join Good Vibes Gaming, I probably would have stayed there
Hmm.
because it was just good. They understood that I was a father as well. A lot of
Yeah.
them are fathers and mothers. Um, and when I joined, I think my daughter was like a month away from being born, and they gave me, I think I want to say like 8 weeks paternity, despite me
Nice.
like a month. So they're a wonderful team, and I learned a lot from them. I don't think I'd be as good as I am now without them. Not to say that I'm flawless. I'm definitely not, but I definitely learned a lot from them. And Yeah, it's probably my favorite corporate career that I've had, if you can call them corporate. But yeah.
Corporate-ish.
Hmm.
Was it? What was your feeling like when you decided to drop that in favor of Good Vibes?
Yeah, that was tough. I had a conversation with my wife about it because obviously we're leaving the the security and structure of Nintendo Life. There's never a chance. There's never a doubt that I wouldn't be able to, make rent with Nintendo Life. It was always secure.
Yeah.
It was a fixed pay. It was, it was just easy. And I think it definitely took a lot of thinking and communication with my wife to come to that conclusion that I should go to Good Vibes. But I think the thing that kind of won me over in the end is I've been working for other people my entire career. And when I left Game Explain, it's like, what, 4 or 5 years of work just isn't mine anymore.
Mm.
It never was mine in the first place. So these videos I work towards, they're just part of someone else's empire. And with Nintendo Life, like they had a good scheme where you'd earn a little bit back depending on your performance. So it was kind of like you shared in the empire, but I still wanted to own what I made. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what pushed me over. I had the freedom to do what I wanted to do. It wasn't just Nintendo, even though that's largely what I still do. um, but yeah, I think just being able to know that something's mine and it can perform for years and years and years, and I'll
Mm.
still see that revenue come back to me. So that was the big thing. Like just being able to actually fully own what I make.
Do you find it? Do you find it easy, or is it tricky to juggle being a father with the videos and stuff that you make? Because obviously that's an intensive job,
Yeah,
and as someone with two kids, also that is also an intensive job. So
absolutely. I'm very, very thankful to my wife who's able to do everything she can. So I'm off in a little, like, I guess I'm basically in a shed right now in my garden. It's converted to be more like a room. But it's a little bit disconnected from the house. So it's like I kind of go to work, kind of like in an office almost. So there's a bit of disconnect between work and life. But obviously, every now and then I'll get like a call, especially with Freddie, who has medical issues.
mm,
So it's a big struggle for sure. And I look back at my videos from Nintendo Life, and I look so much less tired than I am now. Like depending on the lighting, if I go down a bit, you can see like huge bags under my eyes. I'm exhausted all the time.
yep,
So even if I am still kind of trying to do that 9 till 5 and have that separate work life, it's still exhausting because I'm working, then I'm a dad, then I sleep, and I wake up, and I'm a dad, and I'm working again.
yep.
It's a constant loop, and it never ends. Um, I love it, but it's as you'll know, it tires you out.
It's unending.
Yeah,
There's no actual days off because you get to the weekend and you're like, oh, I need to find energy reserves to be a good dad for the next 2 days.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. It's so rare that you can just relax in the evening. And we've got to the point now where Freddie is sleeping in his own room, and we put him to bed earlier than it used to be. So I am getting an hour or two of potential game time, but
Nice.
I also want that to be wife time as well.
Yes.
It's hard to find that time just to be you. But I have it a lot easier than a lot of people. My job is talking about games, and I'm very aware of that. It could be far worse. So it's tough, but it could be a lot worse.
Very fair. Is it nice to have had this through line of people that you've been working with for such a large part of your career?
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't be where I am without half the people I've worked with. They're all incredible. They've rubbed off on me in lots of great ways too. When I started just doing this as a hobby, um, I was learning on the fly. I was learning how to write. I was learning how to record, how to talk, and how like microphone techniques and everything like that. But every person I've worked with has rubbed off on me in some way, whether it's learning a new skill for editing or just learning how to communicate better. So the thing is, like, with social media, you see so many people go to the extremes. It's either something's the worst or something's
Yeah.
the best. There's no middle ground. And doing this line of work, you do see the intricacies in critique. Um, it's got to the point where with like 3D Mario games, Odyssey is like the worst game ever. It's like no way. Like there's all this depth in between. I think being able to collaborate and work with others has definitely allowed you to see different avenues in critique. So yeah, for sure, they've all done great stuff for me.
Is there one piece of advice you've had that really sticks in your mind that's like you would pin as being the best bit of advice that you've had, or the most prominent bit, I guess?
Hmm. Yeah, I think the best advice I had probably came from, I think it was Derek, who said to me like, just make what you would want to watch, and that kind of stuck with me a lot. Because it can be easy to fall into, trying to get into the algorithm or trying to just make what people want.
Mm.
But as with any line of media, whether it be movies or games or books, if you just give people what they want all the time, they'll never really be satisfied. Because the best thing you can give someone is what they don't know they want.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's what I try to do. But it's a balance, and trying to get that secret sauce. Sometimes it's trying to hit lightning. It can't always happen, but when it does happen, it's probably the best feeling you can get in this business.
Has there been a video that you thought was going to do gangbusters and didn't, and also for the reverse? Is the one you were like, this is going to have a super niche audience, and then it exploded?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I one video I did recently, I say like a year ago, is I looked at every Doctor Who game ever made, and I
Right.
thought this is a British specific series. It's got more global now, but back then at least it was very, it's basically a country that you are trying to reach.
Yeah.
And I thought this is going to bomb. I'm talking about all these dreadful games from the 80s, 90s, the Wii era games. Like there's like maybe a handful of good ones. It was a draining video to make because I had to play and finish all these games. There's like 20 of them. And then in the end, it ended like an hour long, and it was fully scripted. It was, I don't know how many words it was, like 60,000 or something. It took a long time, and I thought no one's going to watch this. And when it debuted, no one did really. But then it slowly trickled more views over time to the point where I think it's one of our highest performers. Unfortunately, the BBC blocked it for copyright because I used a
Oh,
3-second clip of the Doctor Who movie, and
oh,
that's can't do that. But that was one that definitely caught me off guard. Yeah, that did way better than I thought it did. As for a video that underperformed, off the top of my head, I can't think of one, but there are for sure plenty out there. Um, a lot of the time, I have some kind of idea how it's going to do.
mm,
Like I know when something is too niche. I did one on light gun games recently, and I knew like that you're speaking to a specific age there. Um, Teenagers now, they didn't grow up with CRTs and light guns. They don't care. So I knew it was definitely an older demographic there, and it did okay. But I put a lot more effort into that than I was hoping for in return. But I had an inkling it wouldn't do great. Yeah.
let's talk a bit about your recent shift into voice acting.
Mm,
Semi-recent. Time is a lie. It's hard to keep track of these things, especially with kids.
yeah.
Anything could be 5 minutes ago or like 3 years ago, and I honestly have no idea.
Yep.
So yeah, what sparked your interest in voice acting?
Well, I've always liked acting in general. In school, I did a lot of acting as part of like a drama club. I got like a the highest grade in drama. So I've always enjoyed it, but then it fell to the side. I think with my general life, I have a lot of self doubt in my own abilities, and I get a lot of comments saying like, "Oh, you've got a good voice. You should be doing voice acting." And I see those comments, and I just go, "Why are you lying to me, man?" But I got enough of them to the point where I thought like maybe I could actually do this. And as much as I love talking about games, like that's a
Mm,
big passion for me, I also want to be part of that creative side. And I'm not smart enough to make games. I'm not creative enough to write stories.
mm.
So I was thinking, how can I get involved in games? And I thought, I do like acting, and I wanted to just kind of delve into that side. Because as much as I love talking about games, I also want to talk in games. So I put together a random demo and just kind of put it out there. It was a bad demo. All my demos are bad; they're very badly written. But I put it out there, and I found Philips was my first callback. They they liked it. So they messaged me saying that we'd like you to do a national advert for the One Blade. So I put that out there, and suddenly I was in a studio, which I'd never done before. So I was in this studio with both remote people in there and people in person. So
Mm.
there was like sound engineers, there was a consultant, and then on their Zoom call there was also Philips people and a bunch of other people in there too. So I was so out of my element because I'd never done anything like this before, and suddenly I had this crowd live watching me read this script.
Yeah.
And I definitely didn't do a good job at the start, but I kind of got a bit more comfortable as it went on. But I was stumbling my words so much, and it wasn't even a big script. Um, but from there, I got video game contacts, and one game I'm in, Cat Quest 3, launches on the 8th of August, so very very soon, and that's going to be surreal because that's a retail game. I can go into a shop and just pick up something I'm
Yep.
in. But yeah, I've done a few other games. A few aren't announced. One thing I'm very proud of is Project Tides, which is an upcoming game. I'm in the teaser for it, and we've recently done the entire recording. And yeah, I'm very happy with what that game is and how the performance was. So I can't wait for that to go out. But it's just kind of surreal to finally be in some games.
How was the process for Cat Quest 3?
Like that was a funny one. Yeah, they emailed me saying, "Can you do a pirate voice?" And I had no idea if I could. So I said, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah, yeah, sure, I can." So then I watched the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy and sort of focused on Barbossa, and I had a pretty good well, I thought it was pretty good, a pretty good sort of menacing pirate voice. And then they're like, "Well, that's pretty good, but can you lighten it up a bit?" And I was like, maybe. So I then came onto the session, trying to do with all their tips,
Mm.
and I think they were satisfied with where it landed. But I I was definitely out of my element with that one. But it was a fun one to do though, and the script was great. There's and working with the team was a good one too. Because with a lot of video games, you're working with a casting team who aren't
Mm.
really involved with the game itself.
Yeah.
But my voice director was the game director.
Oh
Um,
wow.
so I fully got to talk to them and just see their passions about the game, which is something you don't really you often see. There's this big disconnect usually between the developers and the recording
Mm.
process. So that was a very special one. But yeah, I think I've got to learn to be honest about my what I can and can't do. But it landed somewhere good in the end. I think.
That's the important thing. I think sometimes you just have to wing it.
Yeah,
You can figure
that's
stuff
most
out.
of what I do.
Yeah, that's very relatable. I really want to ask about upcoming games, but I know you're not allowed to talk about them, so I'm not going to waste
Yeah,
the question.
there's Run from Mummies, which is another indie game I'm in. I'm a playable character for that one. It's mostly efforts and grunts. There's a
Right.
few little cutscene clips in there, but yeah, everything else I can't really talk about.
Yeah,
But
that's fine.
there's a couple of games coming. I'm yet to land like a big AAA one,
Mm.
but it's cool in recent years. Because in the past, most video game recording was done in like Texas,
Right.
uh, because that's where most anime is recorded and most dubbing is recorded. But in recent years, we've had games like Xenoblade and Final Fantasy 16, and we've got Expedition 33 coming up and Metaphor, where they're all recorded in the UK.
Mm.
I don't know what really caused that shift, but it's very, I mean, especially in my time now, where I'm sort of trying to get up there in video games. It's awesome to now have these
Mm.
opportunities to be in these games where it would have never happened 10 years ago.
I'd love to find out what the cause of that is, and I might look into that at some point
Yeah,
because it
it'd be
is really
interesting.
interesting. Because we've
Yeah,
had because From Software use a lot of regional dialects in
absolutely.
their, and then obviously you've got Baldur's Gate 3.
Mm. Yeah, a
Um,
lot of it's recorded at a company called Liquid Violet, and there's a few other ones in the Soho area. But yeah, I don't know what caused it, but it's interesting.
be a cool video. Um, I have time for that. um, Before we get into the final question, let's talk about hot takes because hot takes are always fun.
Oh yeah.
Are there any hot takes that you have that you haven't made into a video and that you wouldn't make into a video?
Oh, this is where we get dangerous, isn't it? Let's see. Hmm. There probably are. I I think with most of my hot takes I put out there, I don't want to like actively upset anyone.
Mm.
There's certain franchises like I just don't jive with. With I've made my opinions on Sony's direction pretty clear in the past. Like I wish they'd be more experimental and bring back the Japanese side more. And they're doing that with Astrobot, which is
Mm,
like by far their most exciting looking game in forever. But there's franchises out there like Horizon, which
mm.
I think it's a cool premise, it's a cool world, but I just find it very samey in terms of gameplay. And um, the first games like that is their best selling game ever, Zero Dawn.
Right. Okay.
And Forbidden West, not so much, but it still performed well.
Mm.
But I guess I kind of view the Horizon series as just kind of fine. I don't think it's like the highest echelon
Yeah.
of of what they can offer. I think it's all right.
I'm in a similar boat with Sony games. I feel like Sony games are a specific brand of like cinematic storytelling, and they
Mm.
don't hit what I want from games as much as I'd like them to. Something like Ratchet and Clank, I absolutely adore, but then that's a stupid game about traveling through dimensions and shooting
Yeah.
ridiculous guns. So
We mentioned FromSoft earlier. They're
mm,
experts at showing and not telling. They always keep you
yes,
in the game and make even storytelling part of the interactivity. Whereas Sony's like it's the polar opposite.
yes,
It's kind of making gameplay the reward for watching, or the opposite. And yeah, I'm very excited for Astrobot though. I can't wait for that.
yes, for sure. Final question. Well, final topic, I guess. Uh, let's talk about Waddle Dee knows.
Okay.
I know you've done a video on this, and I'll link to that in one of the corners somewhere.
Mm.
Um, but like, what inspired that? What was the aim? Like, was it fun?
It was a lot of fun. So what inspired it is it felt like there was like a new insider coming up every week, just dropping random rumors. And
Mm,
it doesn't matter how reputable they are,
yeah,
people would believe it. They would have thousands of likes, lots of quote retweets from big accounts, just digging into it. And these accounts could be wrong repeatedly, but they can just post something again, and suddenly they have people notice. And I never understood why people gave them this much attention. There's just this thirst for news, and so I wanted to just kind of do a social experiment and see if I could do that. If I could just be right once and then post whatever I wanted. And so what I did was I just kind of made an account, made it private, and just posted a bunch of things, like hundreds of things for an upcoming direct. So the first thing I did was estimate the date of when the direct would be. So I just posted like every day in March, like March 1st, March 2nd, March 3rd. And then I just put a huge amount of guesses. Like I think there's going to be a new Punch Out. I think there's going to be a new uh, 3D Mario or whatever, stuff like that. And I was sure to get specific with it too. So
mm,
I'd do a bunch of specific guesses. And then once the direct aired and was finished, I would just kind of cull down the list of things. I'd get rid of all the wrong dates. I'd get rid of all the wrong info and keep things that were right enough that they seemed legit.
yeah,
And then I just brought attention to the account. So I went on forums with more fake accounts, being like, hey, look, this guy got everything right. And then it just kind of spread from there and it started to get thousands of followers. And I put more things out there, just more random bits, and people were eating it up. And it got to the point where news outlets were reporting on it as
mm,
well. And no one got in contact with the account to ask questions about whether it was legit. There's no actual reporting really done there, it's just kind of echoing what the story
how
was.
interesting.
Uh, and it was kind of a two birds with one stone thing. I wanted to show how easy it is to make something like this and how easy it is to spread a story.
Yeah,
So then I just revealed it was fake from there. 'Cause I didn't want to keep people.
yeah,
I didn't want to, what's even the word? Lure people into the falseness of it all,
yeah.
and keep them excited for these wrong things that I was saying. Uh, and I also got to the point of parody. I was saying just the most unbelievable things, like an Encanto game by Bandai Namco or whatever else. But it was a lot of fun, though. I know there were some people who were a bit angry about it, but I think it did a lot of good in the end, because
Mm.
now whenever there is an account like that, there are a lot of people being like, "Well, remember Waddle Dee knows? Like, can we really trust this?" Um, so I think it did a lot of good for the community, to be honest.
It does genuinely feel like there are fewer of those accounts around since you've done it, which is which is impressive.
Yeah. But then we had some pretty big ones that were legit for a while.
Yes.
I guess we'll see what follows after that. Will there be another one? Will there be more fakes? Who knows?
Um, is there anything in particular that you want to talk about that's coming up? Anything you want to plug at all? I appreciate you've got a bigger audience than me, but it's the
Let's
polite thing to
see.
do.
It's a good question. One thing I am working on right now. I told you earlier there's a Wii game on my floor that's just out of shot now.
Yes.
I've been working on a big, just a Wii video. So I love the Wii. Wii's one of my favorite systems of all
Yeah.
time. I think there's so many great gems. People focus on just like the Mario's, the Zeldas, and the
Mm.
shovelware, but there's so much in between all of that. So right now I'm just working on a video exploring all the lesser known parts of the Wii, whether it's the WiiWare stuff or just gem games that people just don't really gravitate to. Because I want to echo that side a bit more, because there's a lot of cool things in the Wii's legacy that kind of get lost to time. So that's one thing I'm working on. But other than that, I guess pre-order Cat Quest 3 on August 8th.
With co-op, I believe, right?
Yeah, it's co-op, yeah. And the same publisher, Kelper, are publishing Expedition 33, which is one of my most anticipated games as well.
Mm.
So keep your eyes on Kelper. They're up and coming, it seems.
Would you be playing Cat Quest 3 with your kids?
I'd love to. Yeah. Yeah, Amelia's at an age where she understands that buttons respond
Yeah.
to inputs. So she loves running around in Kirby. She played a bit of Mario Wonder the other day. So she doesn't get very far, but she loves just taking part. So that'd be a cool game to play with her, yeah.
Yeah. That's very sweet. All right, we have to say goodbye, which I've yet to come up with a good way of doing. We just sort of wave at the camera and hope for the best.
All right.
So, bye.
Bye.